Now, for more on the US-Iran technical talks in Doha, we're joined by the geopolitical analyst, Dr. Robert Mason, a fellow at the Arab Gulf States Institute, live from Abu Dhabi. Mr. Mason, thank you so much and welcome to Asia One News. So, Doctor, how significant are these technical talks in Doha? Do they suggest that both Washington and Tehran are serious about implementing the post-war agreement?
Well, I think at one level they are. There's certainly an engagement there and a willingness to resume and to try to come to some kind of common understanding on these technical issues. But as we've seen just in the last couple of days, the Iranian strikes in the Strait of Hormuz have undermined that progress that had begun straight after the ceasefire. So it's still very much up in the air, and I think there's very much more work to be done.
And Robert, the negotiations are being held indirectly through Qatari mediators with no face-to-face meetings planned. Does this format limit the chances of a breakthrough, or is this sufficient at this stage?
Well, I think that's part of what's been happening just recently, that the tensions have risen. Obviously, the US has responded and Iran in response as well. So certainly there's a tension there and a need to negotiate in a more conducive manner to make concrete advances on these technical issues. And I think that mediation is probably helping things along. But certainly it is something which needs to be looked at over a period of time. I don't think this is going to be resolved in the short term.
And there's 3 working groups which are focusing on the nuclear issue, diplomacy and the release of the frozen Iranian assets. Which of these do you believe will be the most difficult to resolve and why?
Well, I think historically, when you look back at where the tensions have laid, it's the nuclear dossier, which is one of the most complex and has proven to be one of the most difficult to resolve, hence the Israeli and US strikes earlier this year on, amongst other things, nuclear installations. But I think there's still lots of work to be done. It's encouraging that there is these working groups that are engaging on the issue, but there's still not the base, the framework really. All we have is the MOU, which provides a willingness to engage and provide a time frame to do that. But whether it's going to be long enough, whether it's going to provide the necessary base to make progress, and whether those two very polarized perspectives from the US and Iran can actually come together on these very significant and complex issues within that time frame, or even beyond the time frame if it's renewed, is yet to be seen.
And so one of the disagreements remains around Iran's proposal to charge transit fees in the Strait of Hormuz. How could this dispute affect maritime security and global energy markets if no compromise is eventually reached?
Well, I think we're back to a period of escalation and regional conflagration, which of course is what is highly undesirable and is what most states in the region want to try to avoid. So the question is in what way things could be taken forward. And it's not just the nuclear dossier, so we have to move beyond these working groups. Is diplomacy tracks, but are they going to address Iran's regional networks, for example? Is there going to be substantive movement on sanctions relief and so on? So there's lots of ground to cover in a relatively short space of time. And is that going to be done in an incremental way, which actually builds confidence between both of those parties? It is something which is yet to be shown. But certainly it's encouraging that these talks are taking place. It's just very early days.
So looking ahead, what would you consider a successful outcome from these talks? And could they lay the foundation for direct US-Iran negotiations in the coming weeks?
Yes, I think they could, potentially. But again, given what's been happening just in the last few days, shows that there's still a rationale which supposes that pressure points, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz, can be used to advance the perspective that one of the states is in control and that this one is benefiting and is more successful than the other. And that kind of zero-sum perspective is not really conducive to an honest negotiation. I think both sides need to recognize that de-escalation and more stability in the Strait is what's needed at the moment in order to encourage some confidence, which has been lost, obviously, from the direct military intervention and Iran's response in turn, and whether they can build out from that. But it's very hard to engage in diplomacy after a period of such heightened threat perception. This would have been done much better earlier on by taking, for example, Oman's mediation and running with that in terms of addressing the Iran stockpiles and so on the nuclear side. So we're very much in a worse place than we were just a few months ago.
Dr. Robert, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.